Whether it's a trashy teen drama or a laugh-out-loud sitcom or the latest prestige offering, there's nothing quite like getting in front of the TV after a long day and letting your worries drift away. Unfortunately, TV doesn't always play ball. It can leave you feeling like you've done something to offend it. Sometimes, intentionally or otherwise, television shows treat their audiences like complete idiots. And by golly, it's up to us to point out the worst offenders. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are 10 TV shows which insult your intelligence. Number 10. Modern Simpsons. When the first full-length Simpsons episode aired in 1989, nobody could have predicted America's favorite yellow folks would still be going 3.5 decades later. Not the showrunners, not the producers, no one really realized how big a hit they had on their hands until the show exploded in a sea of yellow and that delicious acidy liquid seeped into our goggled eyes. Now, the show has been going on for so long that the Simpson kids, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, would all now be older than their parents, Homer and Marge, in real time. The writers have tried to combat this issue with a sliding timeline, sorry for the trauma there, comics fans, which most Simpsons viewers have just accepted as the norm. For those of us who grew up on the show in its peak years, it's weird in a sort of remind you of your own creeping mortality kind of way. But in the words of Abe Simpson, it'll happen to you too. It's life, and The Simpsons would be pretty stale if it just restricted itself to satirical beats from 3 decades ago. Although I'm always down for more jokes at Bob Dole's expense. However, sometimes it goes a little bit weird. In 2008, as part of their 19th season, The Simpsons put out an episode called That 90s Show, which depicted a teenage Homer and Marge going through a rough patch in the mid to late 90s, even though there are dozens of episodes from this exact period where the couple are married with children. Like, come on, they're children of the 70s. I feel like that is just embedded into their DNA. That 90s show was the most blatant abuse of the show's fragile continuity, and while to that I would say, The Simpsons has never really been obsessive about that sort of thing, this was probably a jarring step too far. Also, the episode itself was pretty stinky, like a lot of modern Simpsons, which has lost a lot of its heart and humor with the jerk-assification of Homer, weird to-save celebrity cameos, and a streamlined presentation at odds with the show's original charm. Is it harsh to say it's treating us all as if we're big old dummies? Maybe. And there are glimmers of the good stuff in the most recent seasons, but The Simpsons is still nowhere near as funny or as clever as it used to be. Number 9. Once Upon a Time. Starring the likes of Jennifer Goodwin, Jennifer Morrison, and about 700 other people, Once Upon a Time was a show set in a world where fairy tales exist in the real world. Like fables, only not as good. Regular folks rub shoulders with classic characters in this wholesome fantasy affair, including Snow White, Rumpelstiltskin, Pinocchio, Captain Hook, and many, many more. For a long time, the show mainly drew from established folklore for its material, but as it went on, things began to change. In season 3, fans were introduced to Ariel from Disney's The Little Mermaid. In season 4, Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians turned up. And the same year, both Elsa and Anna from Frozen, which had only come out the year before, had guest roles. Frozen is based on a story by Hans Christian Andersen, but come on, these were definitely the Disney versions in the show. Part of the whole deal with Once Upon a Time is that it leaned into old folklore and literature. Having characters inspired by interpretations as old as 30 years ago just kind of cheapened the show. It was so obviously an attempt to cash in on a larger property's popularity, and while it's probably true a show like Once Upon a Time doesn't deserve that level of scrutiny, from where I've been sitting, it all seemed pretty cringe. Number 8. Glee. One of the original cast members and breakout stars of the all-singing, all-dancing show Glee was Rachel Berry, the talented yet slightly obnoxious student played by Leah Michele. For the longest time, Rachel would bang on about how all she wanted to do in life was perform on Broadway, to the point where, even when she graduated from William McKinley High School, the show followed her aspirations to make it on the big time. After an unsuccessful stint on TV, Rachel returns to Broadway in Glee's final season and gets the offer to star in a show. However, she chooses instead to take up a place at an arts college, which some viewers saw as character growth, whilst others thought it flew in the face of everything her character was about. You could say that she'd been burned by her previous experiences, but it doesn't cast Rachel in a great light that she gave up on her lifelong dream after a single stumble. In the eyes of many of Glee's fans, this was a decision Rachel would simply never make, big season finale or otherwise. Number 7. The Powerpuff Girls reboot. For kids of a certain generation, there was nothing more iconic than the Powerpuff Girls. The adventures of Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup were essential viewing between 1998 and 2005. So, when it was announced the show was being rebooted in 2016, fans who watched during their childhood got very excited. Alas, things fell apart very quickly. The Powerpuff Girls would not be getting a comeback on the level of what Samurai Jack got just a year later. And by the way, that show kicks ass. Things got off to a bad start with the Powerpuff Girls reboot when it was announced that none of the girls' original voice actors would be returning. Even the show's creator, Craig McCracken, initially distanced himself from the reboot. The show itself was also plagued with animation errors, and its sense of humor was tied way too heavily to contemporary modern culture. When the OG show had been so timeless, this felt like a pretty awkward misstep. Safe to say that these Powerpuff Girls were not made of sugar, spice, and all things nice, but rather badness, disappointment, and Number 6. Arrow. Now, I don't know about you, but I think the first rule of adapting any given piece of fiction would be to actually take some stuff from the source material. Right? Sure, have the freedom to develop your own interpretation, as we've seen in stuff like Tim Burton's Batman or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, both of which I love dearly, but make sure that you're taking more than just the name. Unfortunately, this was something the folks at the CW didn't seem to care about when it launched Arrow, a DC Comics TV show based on the character of Green Arrow, a bow-wielding vigilante famous for his Van Dyke beard, lefty politics, and trick arrows. Instead of adapting any of that, Arrow instead decided to be Batman Light. Actor Stephen Amell spoke in his own Christian Bale-esque gruff voice. He had his own Commissioner Gordon, his own Oracle, and eventually, after 2 seasons of maybe flirting with the idea of leaning more towards the character from the comics, the showrunners decided to give him Batman's villains too, with Oliver Queen standing in for Bruce Wayne as Ra's al Ghul's new nemesis. Sure, there was a precedent in the comics for Green Arrow to lift from Batman, but that was when he was first created, in the 1940s. By 2010, there was decades of material that had divested the character from those dark, derivative days. All of it was pretty insulting for Green Arrow fans, but by the time the show got to Ra's al Ghul and then the Felicity romance, even casual viewers should have felt like they were being taken for a ride. Years on from its cancellation, it remains one of the most cynical examples of the 2010s superhero boom, and wasted a huge opportunity to adapt the DC universe in a fresh yet faithful light. Number 5. Archer. The whole "it was all a dream" writing trick has been used by movies and TV shows for as long as anyone can remember. Dallas? Anyone? Or maybe even Saint Elsewhere? Most of the time, it doesn't play well, as audiences usually don't respond well to being told everything they've sat through basically didn't count. For a modern take on this time-honored and crappy tradition, there's animated adult spy drama Archer. At least it used to be about spies. The show's 7th season ended with the main character of Sterling Archer going into a coma, where he would stay for the next 3 years. For the following 3 seasons, the action took place exclusively in Archer's mind, changing the genre from noir detective to action-adventure to science fiction. While this was a pretty neat way of keeping the show fresh, the longer these coma dreams went on, the more it felt like a pretty big waste of time. When Archer finally woke up at the end of season 10, it was almost like the previous 3 seasons just never even happened. That's a lot of pointless episodes. Number 4. Roseanne. Oh, you thought Archer was bad? Oh boy, just wait till you get a load of this. Comedian Roseanne Barr, and we're being generous when we say comedian, starred in the sitcom Roseanne for 11 years between 1988 and 1997, becoming a TV comedy institution in the process. The show, which depicted life in a modern American working-class family, was well liked by fans and critics across the board, scooping up awards and topping charts all the while. Plus, it had John Goodman, which is always a lovely bonus. The show initially ended after 9 seasons, with millions of viewers wondering how it was all gonna wrap up. The big reveal came in the final episode, where it turns out that the entirety of season 9 was a fictional story written by the lead character. Oh. Yeah, the ending to Roseanne is one of the most controversial in TV history, as viewers felt massively betrayed after being told that most of what they'd been watching was actually just a total falsehood. It was certainly an interesting idea, but was it really worth taking such a big risk in the final season of the show? One that ended up upsetting so many people? Then there was the 2018 reboot, which was a whole other mess. Number 3, Doctor Who. Much like The Simpsons, Doctor Who has been on the air for so long that it's impossible to keep track of what's actually canon anymore, especially when you throw time travel into the mix. The alien-bashing, TARDIS-crashing antics of Gallifrey's finest have contradicted themselves so many times over the years that there's really no point in trying to keep track of everything. But there are some concrete facts that the show has never messed with. Well, there were anyway. The 12th season of the revived show focused on the idea of a timeless child that was the key to the history of the Time Lord race. In the episode, The Timeless Children, it was revealed that the Doctor herself was this child, and thus the original Time Lord that all others of the species actually came from. This flew in the face of everything fans had previously been told: that the Doctor's first incarnation had been William Hartnell, that their regenerations were limited to 12, and that they were actually a lot older than first expected. Ultimately, it felt like a cheap reveal done to draw interest back to a foldering show, but it didn't really pay off. Number 2, Riverdale. Some of the entries on this list have been about singular decisions made in one episode or season. Not this one though, this one's about the whole goddamn thing. Riverdale, which ran from 2017 to 2023, reimagined the world of Archie comics as a gritty murder mystery show for some reason. The first few seasons were received pretty okay-ishly, but the longer it went on, the more apparent it became that those in charge had no idea what they were doing. Or they did, and it was just the worst, brilliantly terrible, bad, but also amazing idea ever. To say that the later seasons of Riverdale made no sense would be an insult to things that make no sense. One character opened up a speakeasy in the basement of a diner and no one noticed. Another character dressed up the corpse of her deceased sibling and had a chat with it. Oh, and there was an alien? An honest-to-God alien, which they found in maple syrup. And also Mothman. What? Though some people got a kick out of the wacky direction the show went in, myself included, even though I don't watch it, I sit on the side and just admire the silliness going on. For others, it was a bit too much. Riverdale gave up on making any sense a long time ago, causing a lot of folks to give up on it in the process. Really annoying. Kinda gutted they never got around to doing a Punisher or Predator crossover though, because that would have been great to see in live action. And number 1, How I Met Your Mother. For 9 long years, fans of How I Met Your Mother tuned in every week to find out exactly that, how lead character Ted Mosby would find the woman of his dreams and the mother of his children. The identity of Ted Squeeze was revealed at the end of season 8, played by Kristen Milioti, although they wouldn't meet until the very last episode of the next season, which was the show's last. And they were together for about all of, I don't know, 20 minutes? Over the course of just one episode, the show speed rounds Ted and Tracy's entire relationship. They meet, fall in love, have kids, and then Tracy tragically dies with several minutes of runtime left. And how does the show spend those final minutes? By having Ted ask out Robin, the woman he'd been dating on and off for the entire series. Not only did this kind of go against the entire premise of the show, it was called How I Met Your Mother, for God's sake, but it backtracked on all the growth Ted and Robin had undergone as friends. An utterly catastrophic ending, and one people are still mad about all these years later.